The galaxy had learned cruelty well. It was not subtle, not accidental. Every system where humans were whispered about as fragile or weak now understood the cost of underestimation. A single act, swift, unprovoked, and senseless, had become a catalyst that reshaped everything. She was no one in galactic terms. A child from a remote human colony, curious and bright, her existence barely recorded in official logs. Yet in one moment, the galaxy's arrogance extinguished her life, believing that Earth, hidden behind its diplomacy and isolation, would not notice. Earth noticed, not immediately. Not with outrage broadcast across star lanes. The hidden fleet did not respond to emotion, it responded to principle. For centuries, humanity had prepared. Hidden stations, stealth carriers, deep space armadas. Not for glory. Not for domination. For necessity. For moments when silence could no longer suffice, the signals arrived slowly. Traces of the attack, smuggled and reconstructed from debris, whispers from fringe colonies. Analysts pored over them, reconstructing timelines, motives, and perpetrators. What had been intended as a minor act of intimidation became a statement of the galaxy's moral blindness. Humanity catalogued it. Measured it. Prepared for what must follow. When the fleet stirred, it did not announce itself. Not with fanfare. Not with weaponized displays meant to terrify. It rose from hiding. Folded into the shadows of star systems where observation and stealth had been refined for generations. The vessels were immense, black and silver, elegant as predators and precise as instruments. Their engines emitted no flash, no sound, only a subtle bending of light, hinting at power withheld. The first systems to perceive movement did so too late. The fleet's advance was not chaotic, it was inevitable. A surgical tide, cutting through enemy supply lines, communication networks, and logistical nodes before the perpetrators could grasp the scale of what was coming. Warships fell not to explosions but to the sudden absence of control, cores frozen, engines stilled, command networks nullified with quiet efficiency. Humanity's response was exacting. Not rage, but precision, not spectacle, but consequence. Every strike measured. Every engagement calculated to prevent excess. Collateral damage minimized, survivors preserved where possible. The galaxy had assumed humans would seek revenge. Instead, they enforced justice on a cosmic scale, a scale only a civilization forged by survival could wield. The perpetrators were disoriented, their tactics unraveling in real time against opponents who anticipated their every move. Fleet commanders accustomed to centuries of unchallenged superiority discovered that the first moments of battle were meaningless. Humanity operated beyond expectation, beyond standard prediction. What had been planned as intimidation became irrelevant. Survival, principle, and memory dictated every maneuver. In the aftermath of the initial strikes, the hidden fleet did not linger in conquest. They secured communication channels, restored the fractured colonies, and ensured that no innocents would suffer further. Humanity's silence was their loudest message. Power exercised with purpose, not for spectacle, demands respect without proclamation. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. The hidden fleet was real. They were precise. They were dangerous. And they acted not for domination, but for principle. Civilizations that had relied on fear as a currency reconsidered its value. Strategies once rooted in brute strength were recalibrated against a species that measured consequences before lifting a finger. The colonies rebuilt. Systems once thought abandoned flourished again. Survivors shared knowledge and resilience, guided by humans who understood that life's preservation, even when justice demanded retaliation, was paramount. Humanity's actions became a lesson. Strength is not proved by destruction, but by the wisdom in choosing when, and how, to use it. Over time, the galaxy adjusted. Aggression was tempered, alliances reconsidered, and the faintest distress signals no longer went unanswered. Humanity's silent, disciplined intervention had rewritten expectations. demonstrating that vigilance tempered with morality could steer outcomes across light years. And though centuries might pass, though empires would rise and fall, the memory of a single human girl's death endured. It was her life, small and fragile, that had awakened a hidden force capable of reshaping the stars. Her story became legend, not for the injustice she suffered, but for the reckoning it inspired. The hidden fleet returned to the shadows, their presence a quiet gravity beneath the surface of galactic affairs. They waited, always ready, invisible yet inevitable, a reminder that no crime against humanity would go unnoticed. The galaxy did not immediately understand what had awakened. Ships that had never feared humans now found themselves immobilized by systems they could not hack, commands they could not override, and maneuvers executed with impossible precision. Communications collapsed as human fleets disrupted the flow of information with surgical care, leaving perpetrators isolated in their own arrogance. It was not chaos, it was inevitability, a tide moving according to rules written long before the first attack. Every strike was deliberate. Logistics hubs ceased functioning. Jump gates failed mid-activation. Command structures unraveled as though reality itself had shifted, favoring the human fleet's intent. No explosions marked the victories, silence did. Alien commanders realized too late that their fleets were neutralized before a single shot could land. The hidden fleet did not merely attack, they corrected, restored, and enforced accountability across light years. Behind the precision, humanity remembered. Every move honored the girl whose life had been taken, but it also reflected centuries of survival honed under harsh stars. Ships moved like living instruments, crews coordinated as one mind stretched across vast distances, and nothing was wasted. Innocents were shielded. Collateral destruction was minimized. Humanity acted as a force of principle, not vengeance. Systems once thought lost began to recover even as battles unfolded. Colonies were stabilized, data archives protected, and infrastructure repaired in real time. Each action sent a clear message: humanity would not forget, and they would not allow injustice to persist unchecked. The galaxy watched in awe, fear, and uncertainty. Civilizations that had relied on dominance to maintain control reconsidered the weight of every decision, knowing that unseen observers could intervene with far greater precision than they had imagined. By the time the first wave of resistance collapsed, the hidden fleet had already moved on, leaving behind not ruin, but restoration. The galaxy began to whisper not of human fury, but of human judgment, efficient, principled, and inevitable. Even as silence returned to the void, the memory of that intervention lingered, reshaping strategies, alliances, and expectations across countless star systems. Humanity had reminded the cosmos that one act of cruelty could awaken a force that transcended fear, and that the price of injustice could be measured not in explosions, but in inevitability. The aftermath stretched across light years, quiet but unmistakable. Where the hidden fleet had passed, systems stabilized. Communications were restored, habitats repaired, and survivors carefully guided back to functioning worlds. Nothing was left to chance. Humanity's intervention had not been spectacle, it was a lesson encoded into the very fabric of strategy and survival. Alien civilizations recorded it, not merely as a warning, but as a recalibration of what power truly meant. Every empire that had once counted humans as weak reconsidered their calculations. Fleets that relied on fear and overwhelming force now paused, uncertain whether aggression could ever succeed against a species that acted with such measured inevitability. Human actions had reshaped the rules of engagement across the galaxy without a single boast, without a single broadcast. The story spread quietly, through whispers and indirect observation, but it spread nonetheless. The colonies themselves began to thrive under guidance and protection, yet humans did not linger as rulers or overseers. They had acted as custodians, not conquerors. Every repaired system, every stabilized colony, was a demonstration of restraint, proving that strength need not be cruel to be decisive. Even the most distant observers adjusted their projections. War simulations recalculated probabilities in real time. Diplomatic strategies shifted subtly, with caution taking precedence over aggression. The galaxy had learned that humanity's hidden fleet could appear when least expected, strike with precision, and withdraw without excess, and so, quiet settled over the regions touched by their presence. Humanity returned to hidden orbits and secret bases, waiting patiently, always vigilant. The girl whose death had sparked this response became a symbol not of tragedy, but of the principle that had reshaped the cosmos. One life, if valued, could awaken a force capable of altering the fate of the stars. The galaxy breathed differently now. Not safer. Not free of conflict. But forever aware that hidden, deliberate, and principled power could change everything. The galaxy did not forget, though time attempted to bury the memory beneath routine and distance. Systems rebuilt, colonies stabilized, and trade routes reopened, but the echoes of the hidden fleet's intervention lingered in ways that no historian could fully capture. Humanity's actions had not been an eruption of violence, they had been a demonstration of what precision, principle, and restraint could accomplish when combined with unparalleled capability. Every empire, every isolated system, every intelligence network took note. The fleets returned to their hidden orbits, but their influence stretched far beyond the void. Fleets that once acted without caution now hesitated. Predators who had relied on terror to maintain dominion found themselves second-guessing every maneuver. Plans built on centuries of unchallenged dominance were rewritten, restructured to account for a species that did not merely respond with force, but with inevitability. Calculations that once promised easy conquest now included variables no simulation could fully anticipate. Humanity itself did not gloat, did not seek recognition. Their ships patrolled quietly, moving through star lanes and along hidden corridors, present but invisible, a reminder that vigilance and capability could coexist with morality. They repaired, restored, and stabilized wherever their attention fell. Power grids were rebuilt, research stations reinforced, and habitats repaired with careful precision. Survivors of attacks and displaced populations were guided back to security, always protected, always preserved. The Concord and other affected civilizations thrived under this guidance. Generations that had grown up expecting annihilation now learned that survival could coexist with justice. Cultural and educational systems incorporated the lessons of that hidden fleet, that strength measured in restraint was far more durable than strength measured in destruction. That a life valued, even a single child, could catalyze outcomes no empire could predict. Even distant civilizations, previously indifferent or hostile to humanity, began recalibrating their strategies. Wars still occurred, but escalation was tempered. Aggression was no longer guaranteed to succeed. Intelligence networks re-evaluated the risks of interference in human-influenced space. Trade agreements, treaties, and even social protocols shifted, subtly but irrevocably, as the example of principle tempered by power spread. Humanity's fleets continued their silent work. They monitored conflicts without interference when possible, intervened when necessary, and withdrew without fanfare once stability returned. They became guardians of potential rather than enforcers of dominance. Their presence ensured that the galaxy no longer measured strength solely by firepower, but by foresight, precision, and moral judgment, and through it all, the story of the girl, the one whose life had been taken, was preserved. Not as a tale of tragedy, but as the spark that had awakened a hidden force capable of reshaping stars and civilizations. Humanity's choice had created a precedent. The smallest voice could awaken the mightiest protector, and the galaxy could no longer act with impunity. The hidden fleet had returned to shadow, but their influence endured. Across centuries, across light years, the galaxy carried the memory of that day. A testament to the power of justice guided by wisdom, and the unyielding principle that some actions, once taken, cannot be ignored. The stars themselves seem to acknowledge it, shining differently in regions touched by human vigilance, a subtle reminder that some forces, though unseen, shape the cosmos more profoundly than any empire ever could. Time stretched, and the galaxy changed in ways subtle and profound. Humanity's hidden fleet did not return to fame or ceremony. Its vessels patrolled quietly along trade lanes, weaving through hyperspace corridors and shadowed sectors, a constant yet invisible presence. They intervened only when necessary, acting with precision born of centuries of preparation, training, and observation. The galaxy came to realize that human action was not measured by impulsive fury, but by principle applied with terrifying efficiency. Fleets that had once moved confidently now hesitated, reconsidering strategies and tactics that had long relied on the assumption that humans were weak, reactive, or constrained by morality. Colonies rebuilt under careful guidance. Worlds once devastated now bloomed with life, and survivors found not only shelter but a model of resilience. Education, governance, and technology were restored thoughtfully, incorporating lessons that ensured systems could withstand future threats without relying solely on human intervention. Humanity acted not as conquerors, but as custodians, teaching through example the value of foresight, restraint, and responsibility. The Virex remnants and other hostile forces attempted strikes in scattered regions, but each encounter revealed the futility of aggression against a civilization that anticipated consequences, measured every variable, and acted decisively when the ethical threshold demanded it. Ships that once relied on terror and overwhelming force were neutralized without unnecessary destruction, their crews incapacitated and preserved, a demonstration of what might be achieved when intelligence and principle outweighed brute power. Generations of humans grew into this philosophy. Children born under the shadow of hidden fleets learned discipline, patience, and moral reasoning before understanding the thrill of conflict. Leadership was cultivated not through dominance but through wisdom, empathy, and understanding the weight of decision-making across star systems. Scientists and engineers were trained to anticipate consequences as rigorously as they solved problems, producing technologies capable of immense impact but constrained by principle. The galaxy, in turn, adjusted. Civilizations that had once relied on fear as their currency now measured risks differently. Trade agreements and alliances were re-evaluated, wars tempered, and diplomatic strategies adapted. Even distant empires that had ignored human influence now incorporated the possibility of intervention as a critical variable in planning. Humanity had changed the calculus of survival without ever proclaiming supremacy, using restraint and precision as tools more powerful than conquest. Centuries passed, but the story of the girl, the one whose death had catalyzed all this, remained central. She had been small, nearly invisible in the galaxy's vast expanse, but her fate had sparked action that redefined civilizations, remade alliances, and reshaped the very perception of human potential. Humanity preserved that memory not as a tale of vengeance, but as a living principle, even the smallest life, if valued, could awaken forces capable of remaking the stars. The hidden fleet continued its work silently. Ships moved through the void, ready for threats that had yet to emerge, prepared to stabilize, correct, or protect. Humanity's presence became a quiet certainty across the galaxy, the knowledge that one species, disciplined and principled, could act decisively and justly, was a stabilizing force more enduring than fleets, empires, or treaties. Through it all, the galaxy had learned. Conflict persisted, as life is never without friction, but escalation had a ceiling now. Strategies that relied solely on aggression no longer guaranteed results. The hidden fleet had demonstrated that intelligence, foresight, and moral clarity were forces that could shape outcomes more profoundly than raw power, and in every system touched by their presence, the story endured, not of wrath, but of judgment, of choice, and of the principle that no injustice, however small, could ever be ignored. The stars themselves seemed to hum with that lesson, carrying it across the void for all who watched and waited. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, they had awakened it. Centuries flowed like light across the galaxy, carrying the echoes of humanity's intervention into every corner of space. The hidden fleet remained ever vigilant, though rarely seen. Ships glided along shadowed orbits and through uncharted corridors, monitoring conflicts, stabilizing vulnerable colonies, and ensuring that life, once endangered, had a chance to endure. Humanity had learned that true power was measured not by destruction inflicted, but by the capacity to act with precision, restraint, and principle when the stakes demanded it. Every maneuver, every calculation, every decision was guided by the same ethic: intervene decisively, protect the innocent, and never let injustice pass unchecked. Civilizations that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant now recalibrated their strategies. Expansion slowed, diplomacy deepened, and even the most aggressive empires paused, weighing consequences against the unseen force that could appear anywhere. Anytime. Fleets that once relied on terror now measured risk against the knowledge that the Deathworlders were both patient and unrelenting. Their presence alone became a stabilizing factor, shaping galactic politics without overt dominance. The colonies rebuilt under human guidance flourished. Habitats were restored, infrastructure reinforced, and populations educated not only in survival but in principles of foresight and ethical responsibility. Survivors of past aggressions were preserved, their knowledge and culture safeguarded, a living testament to the enduring power of restraint. Generations grew understanding that strength alone was hollow, wisdom, judgment, and moral clarity were the true measures of survival. Even distant observers, ancient and calculating, adjusted their projections. Where once probability favored unchecked aggression, now restraint had a weight of its own. Wars still occurred, conflicts still flared, but escalation had limits. Humanity's influence, subtle yet pervasive, had rewritten the rules of engagement across the stars. Decisions once made lightly now bore the shadow of accountability, not fear, and the galaxy had learned that the smallest act of injustice could awaken a response far greater than anyone imagined, and through it all, the memory of the girl remained. Her life, extinguished in cruelty, had sparked a chain of events that reshaped civilizations, redefined power, and demonstrated that principle could be as formidable as any fleet. Humanity preserved her story not as a lament, but as a guide. One life, valued, could awaken forces capable of altering the destiny of entire star systems. The hidden fleet continued its watch, a silent, invisible force threading through the galaxy. Humanity had shown that it was not merely a species of survivalists or warriors, but of guardians, thinkers, and arbiters. The universe now understood that its actions, its cruelty or neglect, could summon a reckoning that was precise, inevitable, and principled. Stars continued their eternal rotation, indifferent yet bearing witness. Civilizations adapted. Conflicts tempered. Strategies shifted. The galaxy had learned that humanity's hidden fleet was not a weapon for conquest, but a force for balance, an enduring reminder that intelligence, foresight, and moral clarity could reshape the cosmos.